Every woman deserves to feel vibrant, safe, loved, and feel her power. The Woman's Vibrancy Code podcast is here for a potent use of your time. We will cover energy, hormones, and libido with episodes that also dive into entrepreneurship, money mindset, feminine power, and much, much more. Introducing Maraya Brown, Yale and functional medicine trained women's health expert, midwife, mom, and entrepreneur.
So welcome. You are listening to the interview over in the Women's Vibrancy Code podcast. Welcome, welcome. I am here today with Tressa Yonekawa Bundren. Did I get that right?
Totally right.
Okay. And I am currently on a trip and I'm in Denver, Colorado. So I don't have my fancy microphone. I'm recording this with earbuds and hopefully the sound is solid. We're going to be talking about feminine power today, feminine presence. And so let me read Tressa's bio and then let's get this show on the road. Once again, for those of you that are watching over in the Facebook world, please do comment down below. Where are you watching from? Are you new to my work? Are you new to Tressa's work? And what is it? I mean, you don't have to answer all these questions. Answer one of them. What makes you lean in to want to talk about feminine power, right? Just ask yourself the question, what makes you lean in? When you're here listening to us have a banter around feminine power, why does that capture you? Why are you longing for that? What leaves you leaning in? So let me tell you a little bit about Tressa. I love her style of writing. Even reading her bio is so creative and artistic and poetic. So here we go. I get to read it. A drowning death at Santa Cruz at 4 years old, watching from up the beach as my body was revived, turned down for a medical staffing company business loan in college, but told we could meet to discuss it over drinks later. So became a dominatrix differently and finished 2 degrees, opened a clinic and my staffing company, powerful, fearful, founder, a master's degree in neurocognitive communication, foster adopt mom of daughters, keynote speaker, international author, inclusive leadership and boards consultant, goddess, always learning with you, always inviting you in. So that's Tressa introducing herself. I also get to say I was at an entrepreneurs retreat in Puerto Rico this past April. Big speakers like Gary Vee and Natasha Graziano, and Tressa was there as one of the speakers. And I leaned in. Her energy is potent, it's powerful, it's feminine, it's strong. And since then, she and I have been building a friendship. And then I invited her to come in and be a co-facilitator at the in-person retreat that I held in June of 2022. And boy, did we do a spectacular collaborative weaving together. And we both have similar ways of holding space for women. And so for those of you that are listening, you get to hear more about Tressa, and we're going to have a really potent conversation. I know that to be true. And you might also lean into the possibility of working with the two of us in the way that we hold a container. We are co-hosting another retreat, March of 2023 in Southern Oregon. I'll put the details in the show notes, but just lean in. Hopefully you're going to get a lot out of this conversation today. And obviously her websites and her social media handles are all in the notes for you to reach out. Okay. Hi, Tressa.
Hello, Maraya. It's so good to be here with you and everyone.
Nice to have you. Okay. Question number 1. How do we know if we are fully in our power?
How do we know if we are fully in our power? We take a breath and we feel confident. We trust ourselves. Beyond that, we trust each other.
Trust self and trust each other. And often I have women that say, well, I think I trust myself, but am I trusting my intellect, or am I trusting my intuition? Am I trusting that this is fear, or this is my intrinsic deeper knowing speaking to me? And so how does one know if they trust themselves?
I love this question. It's a personal practice. So it's very difficult to just show up for the first time and consider trust, consider power, consider presence. Basically, I know that we can find it on a breath. It's already ours. It's already ours. Finding it through all the clutter that we've collected within and around ourselves is the hard part, because we want to make things a process when in truth, presence, power, the state of being is a state of being. It is living our legacy out loud. So, how do we get to this place? We practice knowing ourselves, self awareness, self worth, trusting our gut, our intuition, knowing who we are. This is how we come to it.
Mm. So for a woman, I mean, we're speaking to women in this audience, for a woman to fully be in her power, it's being in her breath, it's being in full presence, and it's being in full trust of herself and each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's really easy. We try to make things so difficult because we want to problem solve. And we think that to be present, to be powerful, is to be a lot of things that society has named for us, rather than trusting the truth of us, which can be loud, but it isn't always. It's very fluid, it's very flowy. Our full presence and power is malleable. It isn't one thing. We can't put it in a box. That's what makes it difficult for us to announce that we've arrived here without trusting that we're already arrived here.
Right. So you mean it's not, I have a master's degree from Yale and I run a $14 million business and I do all these blah, blah, blah out in the world. It's not that?
It can be that too, you know, if that's where you derive some of your source from, but source is resourced from within. So all of those external markers that and shields, I'll say, that we put on our worth are valuable, absolutely. And this is the paradox. I'm not disvaluing those things. Those things are very valuable. The things that we've done and achieved, the lives that we've lived, everything that we've done, failure or success, has brought us to this moment. So now in this moment, do we show up fully, or are we hiding behind those things now? Because the expression of our impact and our presence comes through all of those things all at once.
So we know we're in our power when we feel present and when we stop hiding behind what we think others perceive to be powerful.
Yes. And I think in our society, in this world right now, we can even say that we're in our full power when we feel our presence.
And when you feel your presence, what does that feel like for you?
For me, it's calm. It's secure. I'm safe right here. And I often ask myself and other people, what is possible when we recognize that we don't have to be fearful of ourselves or of each other? And unfortunately, we're not constantly in that space. We have to be aware. There's an awareness, and especially for women, you know, and talking to my male partner recently, even recently after being together for over a decade. And I said, do you know that when I'm out walking, I have to be constantly aware of everything going on around me, even at my age, you know, even in this world now, even where we live out rurally, and we have a place in the city too, but same thing. I have to have a heightened awareness of what's going on around me, because there have been so many times, and it still happens, that people will yell things at me and I'm not sure who is benevolent and who is not. That I encounter. And it's a different experience being a woman in the world than it is being in a masculine form.
Right.
I've done the thing where I carry the key in between my two fingers, even knowing that that may not save my life, but feeling more safe somehow that way. There's this othering of safety.
It makes
so
me think
that's always going on.
It makes me think of Alison Armstrong. I think it was Understanding Women, where she talks about the actual biology and physiology of the difference between masculine men, a male-bodied individual, a female-bodied individual, and just the disconnect, where for a woman, there is always a physical bit of fear or lack of safety that we consciously or unconsciously have to think about. And what's ironic is I'm also hearing that sometimes there's fear of our power. So on one hand, there's fear of simply being in a female body and what that means out in the world. But then also maybe we have fear of our own power, and maybe others have fear of a woman fully in her power.
Well, we've learned that, haven't we? I mean, I had one of my first companies a long time ago. My assistant was male, had a high school education, super smart, super amazing human being. And I would go out and talk to people about contracting with my company, which was a medical staffing company. And people would say, you know, not quite sure. Thanks for stopping in. Thanks for the phone call. I would put my male assistant, who then became my business partner later and eventually took over the company. But I would put my male assistant on the phone, tell him what to say, same words that I had used, and he would close contracts, you know, very lucrative contracts. And people would say, it's really nice to talk to the owner of the company.
Huh.
Yes, I'll sign. So we're up against this. Any of us who have power in the world, in our homes, in our work, whatever we're doing, we come up against a learned societal patriarchy, for lack of a better word, the shorthand for it, that we have internalized, and sometimes we don't even have an awareness of it. It is like walking outside and having to have more attention for our safety. Within the work that we do, within the impact that we have in the world, the same thing happens. And we haven't all learned the sisterhood yet.
Mm-hmm.
So there are women who are not happy for other women to be successful because they haven't achieved, or they want success for themselves, which is what jealousy is, of course, is that we see somebody doing something that we know we can do and we haven't taken the initiative to do it yet. We haven't trusted ourselves to do it yet. So that
Right.
power, that presence, to me comes from making the choice. It's an active choice until it becomes natural for us. It's an active choice to stand in the truth of our power.
Right. So for those listening, let's say you're wanting to lose a certain number of pounds and a friend of yours has just lost those number of pounds. Do you directly feel small or jealous? Are you able to celebrate her wins, knowing that celebrating her wins helps you along your trajectory? Or if you're wanting to accomplish a certain financial goal and you're in a space with another woman who has, do you automatically go to that place of jealousy or lack or feeling less than? Or can you be in a powerful space of celebrating her wins so that we trust each other and there's sisterhood and potential mutual shared power, and knowing that when I celebrate her success, I know that there's more coming. I know that there's enough to go around for everyone. And it means she's paved the path for me and I'm on my way. So that's where I go. Is that part of where you go in how you're supporting others in being in their power?
Now, but certainly, I've been the person who had the jealousy, who wasn't living my legacy. And it's a practice. It's a personal practice of self-worth, of intention, of time for ourselves, of taking a breath, of, slowing things down enough to make choices. And so, I really think that being in our power is a personal practice, is a right, is a birthright and a personal practice in this world, because we weren't nurtured to live in our power. We were nurtured to make other people comfortable and safe. And so being successful is the antithesis of that for a lot of women and all over the world. Success of women is threatening not only to other women, but also to lots of people. So when we are successful, we have, I think, an additional personal responsibility to take better care of ourselves, when we're on this path of being whatever it is. And whether that's, doing in-home daycare so we can also care for our children, whether that's being a copywriter, whatever that is, whether that's being a CEO of a Fortune 5 company, it all is the same. Are we living our legacy?
Right. And so if a woman notices herself playing small, so to speak, having a hard time prioritizing herself, getting caught up in, am I worthy? Oh, no. I'm going to take one for the team. How does a woman know if she is not embodying her power?
She's not happy.
So when she's happy,
Really
she's in her power?
I think there's a place of contentment. So, we tend to have markers of success being completely out there. And we see this in the influencer world, that here I am in this beautiful place. Here I am with these beautiful people. Here I am.
With
Look at me. Here I am.
500,000 followers.
Exactly. And true presence and power can be much more quiet than that. It can be that, certainly. That can be a symptom of being fully present. It can also be a symptom of buying followers and having a very active PR team. So how do you want to show up is the first thing. And one of the things that I ask all my clients is, what is success to you? How do you know when you are successful? What are your markers for success, for wealth, for power? Not the markers that you've seen, that you've learned. What are they to you? And when we really get grounded there, many people who we both work with, who are incredibly successful, incredibly wealthy, have, from an outside point of view, they have everything. And they say, I'm still not happy and I don't know why. I have everything and I don't understand what's happening, that I don't feel fulfilled.
Right.
That's where this comes in. That's where this presence and power come in, that we're doing things, that living a life that fulfills us. And that doesn't have to be big out there, hundreds of thousands of followers. In fact, most of the time it's not. But we buy into that And we keep groping for that and keep externalizing what we need to do to have that. And that's not majoritively the way to our presence and full power, which puts us in a place of impact and potential.
Right. So what I'm hearing is power means trust in self and trust in each other,
which is risky.
But it's coming from a deep internal feeling of safety and power. And not in our power means not happy, because we're not trusting in ourselves and we're not trusting in each other. And instead we're groping at all of the external, check the box feelings of success. And so a woman may be in her power and being exceptionally successful, depending on how she defines success or not. But what I'm hearing is you particularly support people feeling their deep rooted, powerful presence in living a life that feels happy and in trusting themselves and in trusting one another.
Absolutely. And again, that's all very risky, because we can let ourselves down and we can let each other down. We're human. And so where that connection and relationship comes in is, how do we now work through that? And when we are in our full presence and power, which the core of everything we are, and the core of everything we are is a benevolence, a love. For women, when we say trust your gut or trust your intuition, that has sometimes led us astray, honestly. So sometimes what we want, what we think we need, gets woven into what we feel, and it's hard to parse out. And that's right. The human part. That's the human experience. I'm grateful to have that. Without that, it would be kind of boring, and we wouldn't have the opportunity to learn.
And I see how it's super vulnerable, because if my power is defined by I look beautiful, I have my fillers and my Botox and my rhinoplasty, and I'm the shape that I want, and I'm making the money that I want, and I have the fancy Cartier necklaces and the fancy homes. And if that's how I define me being powerful, it's very safe, because really it's all external. But if I allow myself to define my happiness and my true inner power with actually just simply trusting in myself, there's a lot more risk involved.
Yeah.
Because if I actually lean in, what if I don't trust myself?
Right. And how do I learn how to trust myself? And there's a lot more risk involved, but that also means there's a lot more life involved. And that's what we're here for. We're here to fully live. I had a client years ago who flew me out to meet with her. Total luxury, everything perfectly perfect and beautiful. And the first thing she did was get drunk and cry and ask why she couldn't find somebody to love her. And this breaks my heart, that any of us feel unworthy, unlovable, even though we think we've done all the work, we've done everything. Why am I still not happy? Why do I still not have what I truly want, which is simple? Most of what we truly want is very simple. It is this presence, and it is love, and it is connection. So when we bring it to the core essence, we get here. And here in this core essence is almost too simple for our human minds to accept as being real, because we haven't worked hard enough to simply show up and be amazing.
It also makes me think we want to want. Like, simply, especially for women, I think of feminine power is giving ourselves the permission to actually want, giving ourselves permission to come from a place of desire and surrender to our power in receiving.
Great point. Great point. And we change the temperature, the energy in the room, in the relationship. We have that power and we know it. And we sometimes wield it in ways to get wounds met and not needs met.
So what about a regular presence and power practice? What might that look like for someone who's listening and leaning in?
That can be really simple. It can be as simple as meditation, as taking a breath. I really believe that everything we are is available on even the thought of taking a breath. So it doesn't have to be a big process. We already are this. So how do you best recognize that? Do you go for a run? Do you listen to ocean waves? Whatever it is for you, and it's going to be different for all of us. What's the toolkit? The toolkit is knowing that you have options.
I love that you say this. I was just journaling about this a couple of days ago, kind of crafting something to post in social media, but it was really around in the place of feeling like I'm in a storm, in the place of feeling like I'm not in my power, or I'm not trusting in myself. I'm not necessarily fully embodying trusting others. Where do I go? What do I do? And it's to my breath. And I was thinking, as a midwife, the moments where I can think of one in particular. A mom was pushing, there was a shoulder dystocia, and I have two human beings' lives in my hands. And what did I do? I took a pause and I took a breath, because what I know, it makes me feel emotional, is without that presence and me centering in my power, I can, ask the team to go into action and bring in the support. But if it's coming from a less than grounded or present place, I know it's much less impactful. I have to take a pause and first center here. And even if it's 2-3 seconds, those 3 seconds are significant when I'm talking about two lives in my hands. But my presence is, in that scenario, I almost dare to say, the most significant, so that the decisions that I make and the action and the energy and the container that I hold to ensure that they both live, that it requires that pause to be able to say, I prioritize myself, I fill up my own cup, I drop into my presence simply with a breath.
Simply with a breath. And how often is it hard to give ourselves, allow ourselves, invite ourselves to have that moment for ourselves. So we've learned, I believe, to be in a very reactive mode, responding to things, but very reactively or in a pattern. When we can recognize those patterns as being helpful or not helpful, then we have other choices. But we have to be able to see ourselves and be present with ourselves first. And I love what you're talking about. That makes me tear up, and it made me take a couple of deep breaths. And that story of, we so often have life in our hands, our own. And whether we know it or not, each other's, the quality of life, if not the intensity of life itself. And so knowing that we have quality of life, and maybe even life itself, in our hands, in our hearts, in the wholeness of us, can we step in and lean back a little and give ourselves the space and the invitation to simply be the truth of us?
And even for the women that say, life is too full, I'm too busy, I don't have the space.
Especially for these women.
There is always a way. Even if it's, for me, I've got the kids buckled in their car seats and I've got the doors closed, in that simple walk around to the driver's side. Like, what is that? Couple seconds? That can be my moment to take a pause and center in the presence. We always have the time. Yes?
We always have the time, as long as we have breath, as long as we have life. And it's imperative. It's so vital for our happiness, our health, for our connections with the people that care about us and that we care about, for our impact in our own lives and in the lives of other people. It's so imperative to take those moments. It doesn't have to be a big process. And I think, a decade or so ago, I thought it had to be a big process. I thought I had to go do the thing for 10 days or do the thing for, whatever the thing was, or 30 days, or commit to something so that I could have an outcome. And it was really reactive, more than this interpersonal journey that life is, interpersonal in connection with others in an interpersonal way. So how do we calm all that static, all that noise? How do we calm that for even moments at a time and keep coming back? Maybe, intentionally for a moment 100 times a day, if that's what it takes, or once, just to be here, to show up, to be our best selves for us, so that radiates in everything we do.
Right. So it's a daily practice of moments. And then there's also, we're co-facilitating a retreat, which is a 4-day deep dive where you come into Southern Oregon and you're on 160 acres of land and you dig in. And that can also be a relatively big decision.
I mean, please, let's all give ourselves that time, to completely put ourselves in a different environment where we can notice the truth of us. Because when we're day in, day out with blinders on, I am too. And I teach this stuff. I practice this very intentionally. I teach it, and I catch myself all the time being reactive, being in my patterns that aren't helpful. Like, I'm nervous or I'm anxious or something, I'm going to go cook something, or I'm going to start a new company, or I'm going to, when I just sit back for a moment and take a breath and notice that what I need is to take a breath, my shoulders drop, my jaw relaxes. Everything comes into this core presence where now I have choices.
And time changes. Isn't it amazing how you can be doing one thing and it feels like time flies? And an hour goes by in a split of a second. And then there's other moments where a minute feels like an eternity. It's fascinating how malleable time is in the context of our presence and how we're spending our time.
Absolutely. And when we can bring ourselves to that intentionally, I'm just going to slow time down for a moment. I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to focus on me.
Yeah.
Even that in our busy, busy lives can reset everything. It helps parents to not yell at their children and to offer their children the choices, that make their children more responsive, responsible, autonomous, and interdependent. It allows us the opportunity to be better humans and therefore better leaders, better partners, better collaborators, more visionary, more creative. It's really the answer to so much.
I love that you bring in the children because they do what we do, not what we say. And so when it becomes a practice and an embodiment, and, when my daughter sees me feeling triggered and I take a pause and I step out of the room and take a breath, she might not understand, but I'm hoping she feels that I need to find my grounding before I react, because in that scenario, that mother-daughter relationship is very triggering for me. And so I'm hoping that she's being given an example of how she can, in her own way, drop into her presence because she's seeing me do it, not me telling her what to do.
That's super important. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I think, whatever position of leadership or relationship we're in, it's important for our kids and for our colleagues to see us, especially as leaders, working that out, and we can verbalize that process. I'm just going to take a breath to slow everything down and to give myself the opportunity to make choices. And so it's not a telling, it's a description of what I'm doing that becomes also an opportunity and invitation to anybody else who's present. And I think that's hugely valuable to our kids and to other people.
And so then what changes can we expect when we start using these tools? And what changes have you specifically seen happen in human beings on the planet when it becomes a practice?
More connection, more ability to be visionary and creative, more love, more impact, more happiness. Somebody described it the other day as just feeling like they get why they're here on the planet, understanding life better. And those are hugely valuable tools in the world where everything is so externalized, hugely valuable.
And then how does that then translate into how we show up in our work and in our personal lives? What kind of impact does that then have?
Everything changes. I almost lost a company because I wasn't showing up for people in an authentic way. I was showing up in the way that I had seen on TV and had seen my other bosses show up. And so when I started my first company, I showed up that way because that's what power was to me. And turns out that was all wrong from me because it wasn't authentic to me. So what happens is that we live our authentic lives. We live more fully. It looks like radiance. It looks like full presence. One of the things that I heard many of the women who were at the retreat in June say when we were talking to them, as they were going home. And afterwards, a lot of people have reached out to me since then. I feel so much more alive. I feel so much more capable. I am connecting better with my family. My kids have told me that I've changed and I'm more calm and easier to talk to. My spouse tells me that I'm more loving and sensual and living my divinity. So these are huge things that were not happening before because they've seen the change from taking that time to know themselves. And to me, that's why I'm here. That's why we're here. This is the work that we do, is to be that reflection, to help people come into that space, to offer that invitation to show up fully. And that's exciting for me.
Absolutely. And so being in our power then translates into feeling more authentic, feeling more connected, feeling more belonging. And then there's radiance and it's feeling alive. And I imagine more magnetic and vibrant and capable. And then others start seeing it in us. And it then, I imagine, has a bigger ripple effect. And it can be in moments throughout the day. It can also be in a bold decision to say, I'm going to go prioritize myself and to come to something like co-facilitated embodiment retreat to really, we call it the Women's Vibrancy Retreat, right? We get to turn on the switch. Like, I feel like often people are just living their lives going day to day and the dimmer switch is turned down. It's like the lights aren't on.
But it's safe.
But it's safe. Fascinating. And so then turning the lights on is much more vulnerable because now, oh gosh, what if you can actually see my cellulite?
much more vulnerable. Not only are you going to see my cellulite, but you're going to see my intelligence. You're going to see my ability. You're going to be blown away by the truth. And so living the truth is exciting, and it's not as exhausting because we're not trying to keep safety the priority. We're living vibrantly. And I will tell you that my experience, when I come into presence, and I do this anytime I cross through a threshold, a doorway, get out of my vehicle or into my vehicle, I take that little breath and come into full presence. And I have people in the grocery store come up to me and say, I don't know why I want to meet you, but I want to meet you. Can I meet you? That kind of thing. And I know why you want to meet me, because I'm in the truth of me. And this is amazing. And so when I can reflect that back to you and give you that invitation, you're there too. And here we are. And that's how we change the world.
So really our power is being in our truth.
And our truth is simple and vibrant and wild.
And wild. Oh, this has been so fun. We are running out of time. For those of you that are listening, there are ways to reach out to both of us. That will be in the show notes. I know that Tressa is quite available. I am as well. If not me, then someone on my team to just help you navigate what this might look like for you. If you're leaning in and going, oh, yes, I've been longing for this, but they're putting words to my truth and I don't even know where to start. You start by just taking a step and embodying the presence, being in breath, potentially working with me, working with Tressa, coming to our retreat. Tressa, anything else that you want to add, say?
Please come to this retreat. Please come into your own truth in whatever way you do that. And it's an open invitation 24/7 to keep coming into the truth of you so that other people can see that it's possible. And I'm super excited to have the opportunity to co-facilitate. Thank you for the invitation, Maraya. This today and also the retreat, because the vibrancy of women is vital to the sustainability and growth and success of the world.
Yeah, really, truly a rising tide lifts all boats. And so as we lift our personal tide and embody our power, I believe that it lifts up the planet.
And it does. Thank you.
Tressa, I'm so appreciative of you, who you are in the world, who you are in my life personally. I love working together and I love the energy that we create. And I'm excited for more and more of it in the future. And for those of you that are listening, reach out, have a connection with Tressa. I know that you will be happy that you did. And she's here to serve and to help us all be in a place of trusting ourselves and trusting each other from a very divine place. You're awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for creating this, Maraya. We'll talk soon. Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Woman's Vibrancy Code. Connect with us and take the first step to transforming your energy, hormones, and libido at thewomansvibrancycode.com. Cheers to your zest and vitality. Make sure to follow for weekly power-packed value.